Good evening. My name is Martyno Mażwydo. I'm a director of the Polish Institute in Vilnius. I would like to welcome all of you at a discussion called Polish-American Bilateral Relations and Their Influence on Regional Security. This is a discussion, the last discussion in our joint project with Vytautas Magnus University. This year we have already discussed several important topics to the international policy, but also Polish-Lithuanian foreign policies. We discussed already security threats in the Eastern European region. We have discussed the Eastern Partnership Initiative. We also discussed the issue of Crimean occupation. And today we will focus on Polish-American relations, and the experts will talk about the influence of these relations on security architecture of Eastern and Central Eastern Europe, including the Baltic states. We will also focus on the NATO's eastern flank. Has it become stronger thanks to the developing Polish-American bilateral relations? And so on and so on. The discussion is being organized by the Vytautas Magnus University, Polish Institute in Vilnius, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Lithuania, and Martyno Mažvydo's National Library of Lithuania. Among our panelists, we have today Ms. Ieva Karpavičiūtė from the Vytautas Magnus University in Kaunas. We have Associate Professor Giedrius Česnakas from General Jonas Žemaitis Military Academy of Lithuania. We have Tomasz Smura, Director of Research Office and Foreign Policy Program Director at the Kazimierzo Pułaskio Foundation in Warsaw. And we will probably have also Žygimantas Paviljonis, member of the Seimas of the Republic of Lithuania, former ambassador of Lithuania to the United States. He's now at the meeting at the Presidential Palace, but he promised to join us later on. The discussion will be moderated by Associate Professor Andrzej Pukšto from Vytautas Magnus University. Using the opportunity, I would like to thank you, especially for Andrzej, for being a great partner in these debates, but also for all the partners involved, and also for the National Library of Lithuania for providing us with great space here at the library. Thank you very much. Danish. Boris would like to speak, yes? Okay. Yes?
Thank you, Marcin. I will not repeat what you said, all the congratulations. What I'm happy about is the state of relationship between Lithuania and Poland we find today. I commented to Tomasz that most likely we came back 15 years ago when we had real blossoming relationship between two countries, two strong partners, and we're coming now right to the point where we basically have no problems. And basically we're looking forward, what we can discuss. With Andrzej, when we thought about this event, we were discussing, what is the topic that could unite Lithuania and Poland? Maybe it's China. We discussed that. Maybe it's Russia. It's keep on repeating. So what about Polish-American relationship? Because for us, this is the centerpiece of foreign policy on which the whole plethora of security structures depend here. Will Americans invest into the security future of NATO, Eastern Flank, and Baltic countries and Poland? How Russia will react to that? How we will contribute to this? On this depends our future. So I'm really happy that Kaunas Magnus University agreed to do that in cooperation with Marcin, with MFA, and with Pułaskio Foundation, which I'm really happy that Tomasz found time to come over here and contribute to the discussion. And I hope that in the years to come we will continue to cooperate with university and with Pułaskio Foundation, finding other possible topics to discuss. All right? I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for beautiful introduction. At the start, I only would like 2 sentences to tell about Pułaskio Foundation. It's very active and very well known in Poland think tank. And Pułaskio is Polish hero, Kazimierz Pułaskio, who is very famous in US. And even American Poles are organizing every year Pułaskio Pride. So we know another hero, Tadas Kościuszko, who is more connected with Lithuania and with Great Duchy of Lithuania. And he is also very famous in the US. Pułaskio maybe is not so well known in Lithuania, but I think thanks our event, it will be well known also. And it's really good chance to speak about Pułaskio Foundation, about Polish-American relations. Topic it's really boiling, because we joked until start that today US ambassador in Poland, Mosbacher, is sharing donuts in Warsaw International Airport, because today is the first day of visa-free regime in Warsaw in International Airport. So, of course, when we planned our discussion on spring, we didn't know plan of White House that from the 11th of November visa regime will cancel for Poles. So, in any case, actual topic. And today also, please don't forget that today also is inauguration of new Polish Sejm and Senate, of new Polish Parliament. So a lot of political events, but the main topics, I think, America, US as priority in Polish foreign policies, still on the table, still actual. So I am opening floor, and I would like to ask all our panelists. So main our topic is Polish-American relations and influence to regional security. So for Trump, I think this definition became very known also in Lithuania. So politicians was and are even a little jealous that Poles have such big success in relations with USA. Some politicians in Lithuania are more skeptical because they are telling that without European dimensions is not possible, European security. Also, I would like to remind for all interview of Emmanuel Macron from the last week when Macron forecasted the death of NATO. So a lot of questions, a lot of topics. So I hope everybody, all panelists will have some at the beginning, some impressions, some general remarks. So Tomasz, let's start from you.
Vicky, actually you did my job, so I don't need to introduce myself. So let's start. Let me start with the maybe a couple of short background to make sure we are on the same page when it comes to US-Polish relations. So I would say that Poland is one of the most committed, capable, and loyal US allies in Europe. It shares US assessment on the major role of NATO in European security architecture. Polish-US relations goes back to colonial period, and subsequent generation of the Poles fought alongside with colonists in US War of Independence. The 28th U.S. President, Thomas Woodrow Wilson, is considered as one of architecture of Polish independence after the First World War. And despite the fact that we, in the Cold War, we found ourselves in hostile blocs, such U.S. presidents as Kennedy, Carter, and first of all Reagan, tried to maintain positive relation, at least on the people-to-people levels. U.S. after the collapse of communism, U.S. supported Polish economic reform and economic transformation. In turn, Polish supported U.S. In the first Gulf World War, which paved the way for the closer security cooperation. And finally, in 1989, Poland joined the NATO. After our access to NATO, Polish U.S. defense cooperation expanded to the out-of-area operation. Poland, after the 9/11, Poland joined global war against terrorism and supported U.S. Both within the NATO framework as and a mission in Afghanistan or as a part of coalition of willing in Iraq. Nevertheless, despite of the Polish efforts, some signs of disillusionment over the relation with U.S. appeared. The blood and treasure which we expanded during the Iraq war was not compensated by the contracts for the Polish companies for the rebuilding of Iraq. Also, the offset after the procurement of F-16 fighters by Polish government was less than satisfactory from the Polish point of view. Also, U.S. decided to maintain the visas for the Polish citizens which wanted to travel to U.S., which was also kind of obstacle in quite good, let's say, U.S.-Polish relations. After the election and the beginning of Obama administration, there was quite significant shift in Polish-U.S. relations as U.S. launched so-called reset and tried to improve the relations with Russia. Obama administration also decided to cancel GMD, ground-based missile defense project and installation which was supposed to be deployed on the Polish soil and replaced with EPAA, European phased adaptative approach within the NATO framework without proper information to Polish government. And it was announced in the September 17th, which was anniversary of Russian invasion against Poland, which was not perceived well by many Polish circles. Nevertheless, after the annexation of Crimea and Russian aggression in the eastern Ukraine, Polish-U.S. relation improved. United States administration reassured their allies in Eastern Europe by such measures as European Reassurance Initiative. Also, despite some comments, controversial ones, at the beginning of the Trump tenure, Trump's administration basically maintained the policy of previous administration vis-à-vis Russia and Central and Eastern Europe countries. So today, I would say that U.S. policy and relation between U.S. and Poland are based on the couple of things. First one, which make Poland important for the U.S. administration, it's of course Polish geopolitical position and our status of the biggest country of the eastern flank. Poland is has of course 38 million of citizens and territory, 300,000 square kilometers territory, which set apart Poland from the quite small countries of the region. Poland has also the biggest armed forces in the eastern flanks, which Polish armed forces are composed of 120,000 troops, almost 750 mine battle tanks, 1,500 infantry fighting vehicles, and 100 fighters. Poland, from the US point of view, I would say it is indispensable to defend also Baltic states, also Lithuania, because Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia are combined with the rest of the NATO country only through we call Suwałki Gap or Suwałki Corridor. And because it's on the Polish-Lithuania border, it makes Warsaw responsible for defending this corridor and access of NATO force to Lithuania. Also, because of very unfavorable balance of power on the eastern flank, just remind that only in the western military districts, Russia has 4 heavy divisions, armored or mechanized ones, and 8 independence brigades, also armored, mechanized, 3 air assault divisions, and a couple of more, artillery or support brigades. While Baltic states in total has only 4 brigades, 1 is mechanized, and whole enhanced forward presence we have within the NATO framework can be compared to 1-2 brigades. So without Polish support, it will be very difficult to defend the Baltic states until the significant NATO forces enter into area. For the US, Poland is also a significant contributor to the out-of-area operation. I mentioned the operation in Afghanistan, in which Poland contributed 2,500 troops. Also in Iraq, in which Poland was responsible for the central the South multinational division in Iraq, which stabilized a couple of Iraqis province. Poland also contributed to operation against ISIS, sending Air Force unit to Kuwait. Poland, of course, it's also one of the biggest defense spender. We reached the 2% demand of NATO. Also, Lithuania do it. So we are in the NATO elite. Of course, it's worth mentioning that Poland also became to kind of a backbone of the U.S. presence in Central and Eastern Europe. It hosts, of course, U.S. and Poland cooperate over the missile defense. So for almost 20 years. So Poland is going to host Asher installation in Redzikowo, the town in Poland. Poland hosts also ABCT, Armored Brigade Combat Team, as a part of European USS Initiative, and 1 American battalion in the framework of enhanced forward presence. So Poland starts to be kind of backbone or as one U.S. general say, a center of gravity for U.S. operation in Central and Eastern Europe and on the whole eastern flank. for the new Trump administration, Poland became also kind of poster child. Example which is presented to the other allies as Germany as a defense spender, as a security contributor. It's worth mentioning that Poland is not only security taker, but also a security contributor. We contribute to the enhanced forward presence, sending the tank battalion, tank company to Latvia. We regularly send Air Force unit to air policing mission in Baltic states, and also a mechanized company to Romania. Very often Poland is presented as a kind of example to follow by new U.S. administration. But there are also some obstacles or some problems, issues which need to be resolved in U.S. administration in relation with the U.S. First is kind of drawn-out process of the modernization of Polish armed forces. Polish armed forces modernization program is quite ambitious, but because of some bureaucracy and change in requirements on the political levels, some modernization process are drawn out, which frustrate the U.S. companies and people in Department of Defense responsible for military cooperation with Poland. Also, our economic relations with U.S. are quite far from being excellent. Let me only mention that Polish trade relations with Germany reach around 100 US dollar billions, while our relation with trade relations with US are only at the level of 10 US dollar billions, so it's 10 times less. About our cooperation with Trump administration. So I would say that the election of Trump as the president of United States was received with mixed feeling in Poland because of some comments, controversial comments at the very beginning of his tenure. Nevertheless, because Trump chose Poland as one of the first countries which he visited, and he delivered quite well-prepared speech in Warsaw, I think this fact was quite appreciated by Polish society. Poland shares the U.S. assessment concerning the need to spend more on defense. Also, at least some Polish commentators and some circles see the tensions between Trump and, for example, Germany as a chance to bolster the relations with the U.S. So I would say that our relations with U.S. Right now, from the military and strategic point of view, are quite vigorous, and they're very good. However, there are some things to be improved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tomasz, for great introduction, even some panoramic view of Polish-American relations. Eva had worked for 5 or 7 years. She will concretize in NATO central office. So my question to Eva is, of course, NATO perspective, because in this place, on one hand, the US and Poland is meeting and have more or less the same perspective. Also during Obama times, also during Trump cadency. But the future of NATO is really boiling question, and even this interview of Emmanuel Macron is telling us is that we need to discuss a lot about European security architecture. So, future of NATO. What is your forecast?
Hello, everyone. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for having me here, first of all, and it's a great pleasure for me, and especially having this very interesting and very timely and relevant topic on Polish transatlantic relations. And actually, if you don't mind, I will touch upon NATO, but also Polish transatlantic. So while preparing for this discussion, I carried out a research, and I read the Polish strategic documents, the most recent ones. First of all, foreign policy strategy, defense concept. Those documents have been upgraded in 2017. And out of those documents, you can make a sense how Poland perceives security, regional security, how Poland defines regional security threats, and how Poland, what are the Polish priorities, foreign security policy priorities. So that's a point of departure for my presentation, if you don't mind, and I will elaborate a little bit more on NATO. So reading Polish foreign policy strategy, there are three elements, three major elements, directions, I put it that way, that are closely tied to security and stability, and you can call them levels of analysis. So first of all, national one, perception of national defense, national aspects, national preparedness, everything what Poland is prepared to do to improve its national defense. And in connection to this, there's a regional aspect, regional level. So it's a NATO, EU, because nations do not exist in vacuum. So they are parties to the alliances, to security alliances, which provide their security and give them security guarantees, assure deterrence and defense. So, and the third component, very significant and very central, is transatlantic relations. So, so if you don't mind, I would focus upon national, NATO, regional, and transatlantic. And I will try to make the connections, how those three elements are linked together. So, first of all, about national, actually, it is the security perception and the very definition of threat is important for countries' defense planning and defense perception. So when you look into the Polish concept of defense of 2017, you see a very, very clearly defined security threat. And I can read it as, it is phrased in the following way. The scale of threats resulting from the Russian aggressive policy had not been adequately assessed in the past. Russia poses a threat mainly for Poland and other countries in the region, but also for all other nations, desirous of a stable international order. So that's the from defense concept. And the defense concept is really very extensively defining the priorities and the ways how to address the central threat for Poland. So Poland is focused on territorial defense, on extensive modernization. Those aims are very, very closely tied to transnational cooperation, transatlantic cooperation with the United States. Also, modernization, acquisitions. So Poland is committed to spend 2% of GDP for military expenditures, and out of those 2% of GDP, at least 20% for modernization of military equipment. Also, very, very comprehensive, cohesive approach towards the modernization. So they are looking to all the components of capabilities, to land, sea, navy, and how they are linked together. So they're really working for their national, to strengthen their national defense muscles. So talking about NATO, this is a chapter 3 of Transatlantic from Washington Treaty, which highlights the responsibility for each nation state, each ally, to invest into its own national capabilities. So Poland attempts to meet this requirement and tries to make this homework. So also, it was during this year's Warsaw Security Forum, and the Chief of Defense highlighted that Poland now has 3 divisions, the 4th to be built, and also the 5th would be multinational. So it's pretty serious and serious attempt to ensure the national and, as colleague just said, also regional security. So the national, and also Poland is highlighting the NATO collective defense and deterrence. So those national capabilities are being developed in the context of NATO defense and deterrence. So they could not exist in a vacuum. So here we come to the NATO reassurance measures. So Wales, Warsaw, Brussels commitments, and in the strategic documents, Poland highlights that those commitments have to be fully met. So NATO has to assure its eastern allies' defense, and in principle to have a preparedness, readiness to defend NATO's territory. So this is what Poland highlights, and this is the same with Baltic states. So EFPs, enhanced forward presence, NFIUs, VJTF, NRI. So all those acronyms stand for NATO's initiatives and attempts to improve allied security. So, and also in Polish case, multinational corps northeast in Poland. This is very, very important element. So, and here I moved to transatlantic. So how those national, NATO, and transatlantic are linked together. And of course, it's a very long history of transatlantic cooperation, and in particular in security domain. There was a 2008 declaration on strategic cooperation between the US and Poland, which had very, very significant security component in there. So building on the very good relations and having this wonderful experience in cooperation, naturally that Poland highlights the importance of the United States and improves cooperation, but at the same time, strategically, Poland, as well as Baltic states, and many other European states understand the significance of the US presence in Europe, significance of US assurances for European security. So here we face the real projects, the real initiatives which are being developed. So when we go back to EFP, and NFIUs, so US is a framework nation, which is a leading nation for EFP, enhanced forward presence, in Poland. Also, a very, very important element that strengthens US-Polish relations, the deployment of US brigade combat team to Poland. So it's, yeah, serious commitments, but actually this perception that we need something more, we need some, because those troops that are in Poland, they are persistently rotating. So Poland raised the idea, and Polish president in 2018 asked the US president for additional troops which would be based in Poland on the permanent principle, on the permanent presence. So, and actually, and this initiative, this request is called for Trump. Very nice, catchy phrase, trying to attract the Polish president, and very timely, I would say. So, and this year, there has been signed, and I don't know, I would like to ask our Polish colleague how they assess this declaration. And 23rd of September, the joint declaration on advancing defense cooperation between US and Poland has been signed. And there's an agreement that approximately 1,000 additional US military personnel will be deployed in Poland, and it is called enduring presence. Also, there are highlighted locations, the very particular location in this agreement. So there are very, very concrete steps which have been taken. But of course, we cannot take and look into each and every component in isolation. So this aspect, this cooperation aspect, very, very closely tied to NATO, reassurance measures, to NATO defense and deterrence, and also closely tied to Polish national obligations and national improvement of national defense, modernization of national forces. So from my side, this is it. And NATO, talking about NATO, trust and credibility are the central elements. And all of us, including Poland. Poland is, I think, one of the leading nations, which thinks that we have to work to assure the unity and credibility of NATO. And that is the very, very essence of European security.
Thank you, Eva. Giedrius, you are at last but not least, so the most difficult questions will be for you. So of course, I think collaboration and the transatlantic relations through NATO perspective are strongly more optimistic than relations between US and the European Union. It's not a big secret that even for a long time, US didn't have ambassador in Brussels. So, and how to collaborate, how collaboration between EU and US will be in the future. There is really different visions, and there are not a lot of optimism, you will agree, in general, in all European capitals. Trump was welcomed in Warsaw in July of 2017, really very warm, and thousands of Poles moved to the streets to welcome Trump. But of course, such picture, I think it's impossible in Berlin, in Paris, in London, or in Roma. So a lot of skepticism are in Europe, in European Union, toward Trump foreign policy and his security vision. So EU and USA and the role of our countries. So what you maybe you have some optimistic views in this pessimistic topic.
Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this discussion. And the questions you're asking are very topical, actually. And what we can see, basically, if we watch news, that we live in quite a pessimistic world. Because pessimism comes not from actually is done on the ground, but what messages are sent on the Twitter, or how the other leaders in Europe react to those Twitter messages. So I see a couple of possible scenarios in this broader, but first of all, we have to see a broader picture. Looking at the contemporary international system, it is quite obvious that United States and the European Union cannot be separated, because if they are, they both face the losing position from the rising powers, especially in Asia, and increasing internal competition. We see already that some of European nations, and we see actually very negative trends among European nations, because one nation declares strategic autonomy interests, the others are increasing economic cooperation with the what I would call already emerging and future competitors in Asia, while you know, Russia lurks somewhere as well, especially Hungary and other countries. We see how they cooperate. So Europe is quite a bit divided, and this is not good for the security environment of both US and Europe. Now, from this context, we see that obviously, United States will necessarily have to pay more attention on the events in Asia, especially Southeast. So what Europeans can do in cooperation is, of course, strengthening their defense and relations with the United States in order to maintain this alliance and to be a containment actor in the European part of Eurasia continent. So this could be a division of labor of two powers in the, let's say, in the Pacific and in the Atlantic. Unfortunately, because of the domestic interests of in the US and in European countries, we see that this cooperation is decreasing, and I would dare to assume that some changes can be expected after presidential election in the US if Donald Trump loses the election. If he doesn't, we will continue to have what I would call a multiple Washingtons, because we have this area of tweets, one White House Washington, then we have a Senate and the Capitol Hill, and as well as the third part is, let's say, Washington bureaucracy, which in defense area as well continues to persist and to work for, let's say, more closer relations. So these scenarios are on the US side. On the other side, European countries, especially Western European countries, also should be a bit more careful of what messages they send, because to tear down the bridges, it's quite easy, but to build them, it's more challenging. And now I think Poland and some Baltic states present how in this very negative public environment you can continue to build bridges and continue to increase cooperation. You can be angry that Trump asks to, pay for defense and pay 2% of GDP for the defense from NATO members, or you can do and actually pay. So Poland and Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia show that you should stick to the commitments, and this makes the environment better in cooperation. As well, the cooperation allows to increase actually defensive capabilities. Let's take into account that just recently, US bought 32 F-35s and will continue to increase their preparedness and buy newest defense technologies. For Trump, of course, will be not a Ford, but looking in what forces will be moved from Germany to Poland, a bit to the east, and we can clearly say that Poland and the area will become safer. Why? Because you will have a reconnaissance basically by the drones. You will have special forces that can rapidly react. You will have an HQ who is ready to get the support, and you will have a mechanized as well brigade in order to contain the heavy, to do the heavy lifting. So this shows how you can basically strengthen NATO without, building Fort Trump, but by doing commitments and by cooperating with the US. And don't forget, last but not least, strategic trade. Poland decided to increase imports of liquefied natural gas from the United States, and as well as building a pipeline to Norway, and plans to cut and stop importing Russian gas since 2022. This way expanding imports, alternative imports, what I would call, from basically to be sufficient from Western areas, Europe or American, to construct new LNG terminals. And basically Poland is ready to import, will be ready to import 15.5 billion cubic meters of natural gas. Basically, it can sustain itself and even supply some gas for the Ukraine. So this shows the commitment. And of course, you can make a tragedy in the transatlantic relations, but you can continue to work and see for the opportunities.
Thank you for this really beautiful beautiful presentation of global perspective. After 10 minutes, I think that I will share microphone to the hall. But now the second round, it will be your short suggestions and wishes for Polish-Lithuanian relations. It's also not a big secret that dynamic of Polish-Lithuanian relations during the last 10 years was not the same. We had the period of cold relations, we had the period of freezing climate between Warsaw and Vilnius, but thanks God, during the cadency of President Duda and during the government of law and justice, these relations became strongly more dynamic, but still now some threats which are coming for our security, for Polish security, for Lithuanian security, they still are quite big in different areas, in energetical security, informational war, also soft power, military power. So can you suggest some wishes, some remarks in area of our bilateral relations, but of course in context of USA, but not only of USA. So short remarks for both countries for future.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we know what problems we have in Polish-Lithuanian relations. There are some of them, but let me focus on the positive aspects. So, as you know, Poland is involved in many frameworks of regional cooperation, as we before. Benign format as a group gathering NATO Eastern Flank, also in Free Seas Initiative. But as you probably know, we have within these formats, as Free Seas Initiatives or benign, we've got different views on very important aspects of security and politics. And I think right now, in Central and European aspects, we've got three main questions which need to be answered. One question is, what is our policy towards Russia? Second is, what is our policy towards China? And third, what is our policy towards Germany? So I would say that the common answer with Poland within these groups as 3Cs initiatives or B9 or whatever have only 3-4 countries. So we share our general assessment of the most important issues as Russia, China, Germany, only probably with Romania, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. With Germany, with Hungary, which were presented sometimes as one of the closest ally in the European Union, we've got absolutely different views on the relation with Russia or the relations with China. With Czech, we've got different approach towards Germany on other issues. So I would say that in Lithuania, regardless all the obstacles, as right of Polish minorities and things we know from the many years, we share what is the most important in our relations, our general approach to the most important things from the strategic, from the national interest point of view, and it's very good base to build cooperation on that. Thank you.
Actually, I agree with you, absolutely. Really, building upon the good experiences, and if you talk about security, about defense domain, so we have very, very similar strategic perspectives, and Lithuania, Baltic states, I would put it that way, with Poland, we have a very close and nice relationship, and really we support each other in multilateral formats and bilaterally. I think this partnership, this cooperation with this neighborhood relationship is really strong, and really I would assess it in a positive way. But not only talking about traditional military threats, traditional challenges, security challenges, but also new transnational security threats, as cyber, for instance, energy, name it. So I think a lot of areas to work on, but really the relationship and the experiences are really very good. So we have a good start. Yes, Poland and 3 Baltic states. Also, Poland, Baltic states, and Nordic countries maybe. So we can think about different various sub-regional formats. Visegrad plus with B9 also very, very interesting format, and really very good cooperation, very good dialogue. So numerous sub-regional formats plus bilateral dialogue, bilateral cooperation, Baltics plus Poland. So really a lot of formats to work together.
Yeah, again, we have to see a bit bigger picture. January 31st, UK leaves European Union, yeah? So do we see a replacement for Britain? Obviously, nobody can replace Britain because of the size, economy, and so on. But politically, I see that Poland, with the support of the Baltic states, can become a bridge between United States and European Union. Of course, we have problems in here because some policies, because of domestic interests, can hinder this cooperation with Germany or France or other countries, but nevertheless, there is opportunity. Will we use it? I don't know, but this is an opportunity, and Poland will have quite strong support from the Baltic states if it decides that it wants to, let's say, to some point review its policies and to approach questions and the future strategically, because looking into future even more, Europe can be a geopolitical subject or a geopolitical object, and it depends on our choices, how we go. And I hope, I wish that with a strong Poland, with the support and being a bridge between European Union and US, we can be a geopolitical subject, not object, as Europe.
Thank you. So we are stopping in this moment on this optimistic wave of Polish-Baltic Commonwealth. And now it's time for questions. Yeah. Who would like to ask? Yeah. So please introduce.
Mackiewicz, professor in medicine, so happened. You see, today we start discussing about Polish American, but who represent Americans in our discussion? Pułaski Institute, I hope, represent Poland. Therefore, we put, like in the academic seminar, we put questions, but we do not expect answers, because nobody could answer for our questions. Maybe, but since we are not politicians here, but academic body mostly, it is okay. Simply, it is my personal question. But now, concerning Trump Ford, Pułaski Institute could explain. In Polish vision, it should be based on anti-missile forces. But today, in the military world, there is no means to destroy hypersonic cruise missiles. Therefore, how could you build the board which could not defend from such a weapon? Therefore, I see here rather. So maybe it's too long my question. Therefore, I think that strengthening of the convention forces is just good resolution, good solution. And the anti-missile shield is not good solution, because there are not means for today. But it is simply my question, maybe. And now America and Eastern flank and Poland. Military, everything is rather okay, but economically, really not. Since neither Lithuania nor Poland did not use Marshall Plan, maybe, and the countries which used this plan, 4 years plan, 52, 50, 56, yeah. And now we really need economic help, something like comparable to Marshall Plan. But I think that America is divided politically and economically. American, but simply it's my question, because I am medical representative. And we more need economical help. Imagine Poland as strong economically as Germany. It's one situation. And imagine Poland as weak as Bulgaria. Absolutely another situation. The same geopolitical place, but another situation. How to reach the good view from America on the economical department, not political. It is question. According to my observation, very strong influence in Canadian society have Ukrainians. Really have influence, very, to my knowledge, maybe I am wrong. And to my knowledge, very strong economical information is of not very small Jewish community in America. And maybe the way how to attract economical cooperation goes through Israel or directly through Jewish society. Historically, we have had very good contacts. Simply it's necessary to make some new steps and have good vision for perspective. So thank you. It was rather a long question.
I think more or less question is clear, Tomasz. Can you?
Okay, so answer your questions about missile defense. So basically, maybe I failed to explain it properly in my introductory remarks. But basically, for Trump, it's not about missile defense. We cooperate with the U.S. Within the enhanced forward within the European Five Adaptive Approach, which is NATO basically NATO program, and as a part of it, Poland will be host IAG's Usher installation, and of course. Hypersonic weapon, it will be a challenge in the future for NATO. But right now, a hypersonic weapon, are under the development in the Russian the defense industry. So, of course, it will pose a threat for the NATO, and it's an issue which needs to be answered, in the NATO Council. But probably we have still some time to prepare our capabilities, to be able to protect our citizens from the Russian missile threats, also in the hypersonic dimensions. But generally, for Trump, was about, of course, Polish goals at the beginnings were quite ambitious. So some people within the Polish government mentioned that our goal is to have one heavy American division, armored or mechanized, on the Polish soil. But I would say that it evolved, and I think that for Trump, as my colleagues mentioned, it's rather catchy word for the some capabilities we need as a eastern flank as a whole. So it's not only about tanks or more troops on the ground. It's about such capabilities air defense, because or artillery, long-range artillery, because Baltic states. I know that you invest heavily in your defense. Lithuania recently increased the numbers of the troops in the armed forces. But of course, the Baltic states haven't such capabilities as classic air defense against air targets or against short-range missiles, which need to be provided by allies, as in case of air attachment in Baltic states. So I think we need to have some capabilities which lack us as a NATO in Poland, not in Germany, not in Italy. We need to have them close, to the borders, to be able to defend, these 30 days until the significant forces, we've got right now this 30 initiative within the NATO, but also from the, as example, Rand Corporation report that probably Russian armed forces would reach the outskirts of Tallinn maybe in 2-3 days after the beginning of major full-scale attack against Baltic states. So by no chance we haven't these 30 days to wait for the significant NATO capabilities. So we need to have some on the ground, as in case of capabilities I mentioned, as air defense or long-range artillery. So I would say that putting aside of this narration about Fort Trump, it was proper or not proper. The idea is being behind of that, it's quite fair and it's reasonable. So basically, we need to have more troops on the ground. About second question is about economic cooperation. As I also mentioned in my introductory remarks, it's, I believe, one of the targets of Polish foreign policy to make happen that our quite vigorous security and defense relations are at least as good as our economic ones. So it's a reason why we cooperate with the US over the LNG gas, as my colleagues mentioned. Also, the infrastructure is another area when Poland, in which Poland wanted to cooperate closer with the US. So basically, I believe it's kind of main goal of Polish economic general policy to bolster also relation in this dimension.
Maybe a few words just on
please.
this economic part. It will be a slight speculation, but when I think about the economy and the U.S. commitment to U.S. economic investment, so the first thing that just crossed my mind was European Deterrence Initiative, so EDI. It is an investment and Congress commitment to European security, and we very well know that at NATO is a pretty heavily debated defense commitments, defense pledges, and military expenditures. So there's an expectation that each and every ally spends for defense at least 2%. So, and we are, kind of lagging here. If we talk about the entire alliance and all the allies, so there is a kind of work in this particular domain. So this is something for European countries to think about. And the other aspect which is important in this defense economy, let's put it that way, what the European Union does with defense initiatives and how this European defense aspect contributes to NATO. So this is really very important, and I don't know how it will evolve, but there is some discussions, there are some processes which are significant for the European security as such.
Okay, maybe some other questions. Yeah.
Very heavy question. Decisions on war and peace are very difficult, and particularly when you are in the Security Council. I wonder, is there any threshold for Poland to break with either EU or NATO or US over the decisions of war and peace? Example, on 10th of October, a watershed moment happened on the Security Council. Poland, together with Germany, UK, and France, put forward the UN Security Council resolution. And Poland finds itself, for the first time in recent history, on the other side of the line, when Russians and Americans lined together against European countries, against European Union, and vetoed resolution. Poland went with EU, not NATO, not US. So what was the threshold? Do you see repercussions? Because that might happen not in Syria and somewhere else. Thank you.
Giedrius, maybe you?
It depends on the question, obviously, because, look, the Syria question, most of the countries in the world basically, let's say, fall short of support of US decisions and Turkey's actions. So Poland joined this, and it was not the sole, but it depends about what armed or war and peace question we're talking about. Are there allies directly connected and being under assault? if there are, I have no doubts that there will be no questions raised by the Poland or United States when there is a need to defend a European ally who was under attack, under unprovoked attack. Even I have no doubts, this is my assumption, I have no doubts that if it were Finland or Sweden, US will fall and support the European countries in the assistance and defense of those countries, despite they are not NATO countries. So the Euro-Atlantic area can be seen divided, from what we see, but actually it is very, very strongly integrated and very supportive on the ground, despite the political, messages. And concerning Syria, it's a unique question, but at the same time we have to remember Jerusalem question, where there were even more widespread positions. So it depends on the position. Nations have national interests, but NATO and European Union safety of the allies are crucial, and they are ready to defend and commit, what I see.
So some more questions. Yeah.
My name is Ladislav. I'm a student from European Humanities University and the Vytautas University. And probably Mr. Pukšta and Mr. Gedius Česnakas remember me from lectures. So my question would be connected with the upcoming presidential elections in US. The question to the speakers would be if we would see not Trump winning, but a Democrat, which changes you would see to American policy towards Poland, Polish-American relations, and which decisions they might take in practical questions regarding troops, regarding tanks, how many of them would be deployed, will it be reduced or increased? What are your general thoughts in case a Democrat wins next elections?
I think question is clear. Tomasz, maybe you.
Okay, I can start. If I came back to the question of gentleman for Ministry of Foreign Affairs for a moment, because it was quite interesting. I would say that probably what we had in the United Nations Security Council, it's the result of diversity which we have in transatlantic community right now. There is more and more issues over the which EU and US haven't common views. So the first case was, for example, policy towards Iran. So European Union wanted to stay within the P5+1 deal, and the U.S. pushed its allies to withdraw from the deal, and there is more and more issues like that. So Poland, I think, it's quite concerned. So it's my private point of view, of course, but I think there will be more and more issues like that, at least under this under the current U.S. administration. But it leads me to other general observation, because from the countries as Poland and of course Lithuania, the unity in the NATO is probably more important, and the question is how other countries, would behave if there was not unity within the NATO Council. I would say that. Please remind that transatlantic, that NATO treaty, has two dimensions. One, it's bilateral, and other is multilateral. So basically, in case of any, attempt to attack our other alliance, we are obligated bilaterally to help each other. Yes, so it makes me more and more. It makes me more positive, over that even if we wouldn't be able to reach consensus within the NATO allies, if it's invasion or other things, still. Poland is, obligated to help Lithuania or Latvia or Estonia because of our bilateral cooperation, and it's the same in case of U.S., Germany, and other countries. So there is a diversity, but we are still, friends each other regardless of some disunity which we have in transatlantic community. And about the election in the U.S. and possible change after if Democrats won the election. One friend of mine mentioned that maybe Polish general foreign and defense policy it's not quite smart because we put too many baskets too many eggs into one basket, and we really focused our foreign policy on our relations with the U.S. I think many people share this view also in the Polish expert community and among Polish commentators. But nevertheless, as I suggest that the policy of United States towards Russia or towards Central Eastern Europe was coined under the Obama administration, democratic ones. And despite some Trump's controversial opinions that NATO is obsolete or we should combine the defense spending with our defense commitments, Trump's administration maintained this policy. So probably I hope that the assessment of next administration will be the same, even if it will be a democratic one. But nevertheless, we are all aware that there are some issues which might change a bit the focus of U.S. foreign policy as the relation with China are more and more tensions. So probably the next administration might have other problems as well, not only Russia. And in U.S. defense strategy, China is enlisted as a first. Russia is the second, Iran is first, and North Korea. So priority for the U.S. administration right now it's quite clear. But on the other hand, it's push for us more, burden to be better prepared and not only count on U.S. support, but first of all count on ourselves, on our defense ties in the region or the defense cooperation we have with our neighbors, with our partners, and on our own armed forces, which is why efforts we have in Poland, in Lithuania to increase our defense capabilities are more and more important. And I think we basically do our job, but long way to come still.
Would you like to add something?
I think looking into these elections, well, I would read that Poland and the Baltic states perfectly understand their geopolitical positions, and they are ready with any administration the United States citizens elect. We are ready to adapt, we are open. There is no difference with whom to work. It's Democrats or Republicans. I would say that a lot of initiatives that are implemented under Trump were initiated under Obama, and this shows you know that Poland and Lithuania and other countries are willing to work, and if there is a will, there is a methods how to approach. And I recall when Trump was elected and started tweeting very, let's say, curious things, everybody was, surprised how you will work with Trump. It's unpredictable. Well, we managed to find the recipes, and I think we will continue to manage to find the recipes, be it Democrat, be it Republican. The strategic relations are quite strong.
So I'm trying to finalize this part of our discussion here in this hall. I would like to remind that we discussed all together with Tomasz Smura from big think tank of Warsaw, which is the name Pułaskio Foundation. Eva Karpavičiūtė is from Vytautas Magnus University, and Giedrius Česnakas, associate professor from Military Academy here, General Žemaitis Military Academy in Vilnius. Thank you a lot for Polish Institute, for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course for our favorite Martyno Mažvydo's National Library. It's really big pleasure always to be here. It's in a great, nice atmosphere. Now Ministry of Foreign Affairs is inviting all people for glass of wine on the same floor here, and we will have possibility to continue our discussions and also to ask some small or maybe bigger question during the small reception here. So thank you for attention. Thank you for coming, and we hope that see you soon here. Maybe we will find some another attractive topics, and you are always welcome. Thank you.